Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu says his government will not reverse economic reforms while calling on the World Bank to accelerate financing and support Nigeria's growth agenda. Receiving a World Bank delegation led by Managing Director of Operations Akpabio, Tinubu said Nigeria has moved through the most painful phase of reform, including fuel subsidy removal and exchange rate unification, and would not return to past policies. He further urged the World Bank to speed up agricultural support to raise productivity and create jobs. The World Bank said Nigeria's reform path over the past 2 years has produced strong results and is closely watched by investors and policymakers globally. Beard said the World Bank is aligning a new country partnership framework with Nigeria's target of a $1 trillion economy and 7% growth, with job creation as a priority. The meeting was attended by the Vice President, Minister of Finance, and other government officials.
It was difficult for a leader to look the other way in any corrupt environment for an opportunity that can give him one chunk of money in subsidy regime. Now, in multiple exchange, give it up. Let the world and the country benefit from a stable currency. And yes, the first reaction was the high inflation, but it's come down dramatically. Nigeria is the heart of the continent, and it is necessary for us to do what's necessary to strengthen the economy, particularly looking at the young population of this country. But I want the World Bank to look at various options of financing. Taking the model, what is the value of encouragement for an Africa that is taking this huge population on an assurance of prosperity? How can you accelerate that growth in a partnership with us?
And what I have particularly appreciated and followed, if I may also add, is your steady direction that you communicate to the people of Nigeria, as well as outside of Nigeria, of the importance of the reforms. Because that has given confidence and clarity that even when reform implementation can be difficult, there is no... So a $1 trillion GDP and 7% growth, that for me now becomes the operating framework that we need to work with. How do we contribute to that vision?
All right, well, after deliberating extensively for more than 4 hours, the Nigerian Senate on Tuesday failed again for the third time in 2 weeks to pass the much-awaited Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The Senate had received the report of its Committee on Electoral Matters on the proposed Electoral Act Amendment Bill last week. To avoid the mistake of rushing through the documents, the Senate set up a 7-man ad hoc committee with a mandate to aggregate the opinions of lawmakers on the proposed amendment bill and further fine-tune the report of its standing committee on electoral matters. When the Senate reconvened on Tuesday, there was not a mention of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Ahead of the 2027 general elections, there is a growing clamor on the need for the Senate to pass the bill, whose key provision is the electronic transmission of election results. The Department of State Services, DSS, has arraigned former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, and his son, Abdulaziz Malami, before the Federal High Court in Abuja on terrorism-related and firearms charges. According to the charge sheet, Malami is accused of abetting terrorism financing by allegedly failing to prosecute known financiers during his tenure as Attorney General. The defendants are also charged with unlawful possession possession of a firearm and ammunition allegedly recovered from Malami's residence in Kebbi State, including a Sturm Magnum rifle, live cartridges, and expended rounds, contrary to the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022 and the Firearms Act of 2004. Both defendants pleaded not guilty to the 5-count charge. Justice Joyce Abdul Malik ordered that they be remanded in DSS custody after declining an oral bail request by defense counsel, insisting that bail must be sought through a formal application. The matter has been adjourned to February 20 for the commencement of the trial. All right, the number of stories for us this morning. Rufia and Dr. Abati. Rufia, your take on some of the stories this morning: the Energy Summit, the charges brought before former Attorney General and his son, the Electoral Act amendment, and others.
I mean, I've always known that the National Assembly is not ready. They're not serious about election transparency in the country. They don't want it. We remember the hassles Nigerians went through before they even passed this Electoral Act we're currently using now. You remember how some of the lawmakers then lied that they don't have internet in their villages, so transmission was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
We remember. So I think what they're probably going to do is they're going to rig my rule, and it's going to be like 2019 all over again, because as at February, I think you need about a year, for it to have been signed into law. So as of February today, if you have not done anything about it, the possibility you're going to do it is very stark. And these guys don't care about Nigeria. See, the people that they call themselves the representative of the people are the representative of themselves. As long as they can go there, take constituency project, that's all they know about. You think they care about you and I? They're not there to represent. So when people frolic around these people and say they are representing you, I mean, it's a joke. It's a joke. They are busy rubbing legs here and there. That's what they're concerned about. So I'm not surprised about what is going on there. As regards President Tinubu, see, I think for me, the interesting thing is, yes, I know we want to be bullish and excited, but let's also balance out the narrative. And all I do here in the morning is to come and balance out the narrative. When President Tinubu keeps talking about the reform they are working on, I'm saying, what reforms? Reforms that can't bring FDI? The total FDI Nigeria made last year was about 900 and something billion, 900 and something million USD, not even in the billion range. All right, that's the total FDI. If you check the FDI rankings in Africa, probably we're not on the first 10 list. It would be a miracle if we're on the first 10 list. The government keeps saying, oh, FPI, but that's go in and go out money. That's money that can be taken out quickly at any point in time. And these are monies that you keep with parameters. That's why you see one of the reasons they say inflation is down, they've always reduced interest rate, because they also need those parameters to be able to keep those FPI money. You can't service your budgets. Our budget is still in dire straits. Shit. We're running 2 or 3 concurrent budget cycles. You're not even getting enough revenue. So, I mean, what are the fruits of the reforms? We're complaining about anti-venom, in some parts, hospital deplorable condition. I think about a year or two, the Minister of Health was saying he only got about 10 or 15% to service his capital budget for the healthcare sector. I mean, so what reforms are we talking about? People are still hungry and poverty. You say agricultural reforms. Where are the tractors from Belarus? Have they been shared? Are they already working? Are they helping in providing food? The one that even interests me the most, we keep talking about subsidy removal and all of that. Part of the argument NNPC used to make them, subsidy is one of the things that is, stopping us from giving the government revenue. Look at the NNPC books that came out the other day. Terrible. See, President Tinubu approved cancellation of $1.42 billion and 5.57 trillion in outstanding debts owed by the NNPC to the federal account as at 31st December 2024. So we keep writing off debts on the NNPC. We're not getting enough from the revenue. You say, okay, we are passing on the money to the states. We're not seeing any result as regards what we're passing on to the money of the states. We can't do a lot of the infrastructure. And we are taking heavy loans. The World Bank that is coming to praise us, we have exposure of close to $17 billion to the World Bank. You think that money is free? They will say it's in development and everything, but these are the things, the levers they use to tie you down.
He did mention it though.
So we have that. You think the money is free? You think President Tinubu thinks the World Bank will just write off the money like he writes off NNPC loans without due process? I mean, these are the things we are talking about. So when you talk about the reform, okay, 20 billion is coming. That's not a final investment decision. The one I give to him, Bonga, yes, final investment decision, 5 billion. If you are hearing about oils and you are not having final investment decision, FID, I mean, don't discuss, it's all talk. It's just like the Maersk deal that we keep talking about. Turkey pledge, you're going to bring in 5 billion into the country. No. That's a real substance. See, if you make that money in FDI, it will show. 2015, Nigeria could easily was on the top 10 investment ranking. Today is no longer the case. Look, we're saying we want to produce 3 million barrels. We can't even meet the upper quarter. We're struggling to meet the upper quarter because of insecurity. Most of these, what's it called, terminals and wells, they don't have enough investments. Most of them are moribund. So when we're talking very bullishly at the International Energy Summit, we're doing 3 million barrels and everything. It's not practical on ground.
All right, Dr. Abati.
Okay, let me start with the electoral bill, which I've repeatedly said on this program is very urgent because also of the crisis of time. Now, what the law says that the electoral bill must be in place at least about 360 days, 180 days before the commencement of the next election. And there are those who have argued that it looks like this National Assembly is playing games with Nigerians. Namely, that the time will run out, as it did instructively under President Muhammadu Buhari in the year 2019, I think, 2018, 2019, ahead of the elections that year. And the folk wisdom is that a government that came in through a particular electoral act will not want to go and tinker with it in such a way that it will affect his own fortunes. Now, the cynics are saying that this proposed, amendment to Electoral Act 2022 is talking about real-time transmission of electoral results, of election results from polling booths, from wards, beavers, technology, upgrading technology. And as if that were to be done, then of course the government will hold the wrong end of the stick. Two, that electoral offenders will get stricter penalties. Now the same politicians that rig the elections, do you want them to go and come up with a law that would not favor them? And then of course other provisions that have been recommended by civil society. Why do people think that the Tinubu administration is not committed to electoral reform, which after every election, Nigerians have said will be necessary in terms of lessons learned, in terms of deepening of the electoral process, in terms of further empowerment of the Nigerian electorate? They say that even the House of Reps, which in December had already said, oh, it has done its own work and it was ready. Do you know that the House of Reps has now come back to say, oh, there are further amendments that we need to make? So now add to that, to the rigmarole in the Senate. In the Senate, the first time the matter was tabled for review, the chairman of the Electoral Matters Committee conveniently did not show up. Then another committee was set up to go and review whatever was submitted. That committee came back. Now an ad hoc committee, 7-man committee was set up and given 3 days, which expired yesterday, to present its report. Yesterday, Nigerian senators spent 4 hours on the same subject. Then they came back and said, oh, we have not resolved it. We will continue on Wednesday. You cannot blame Nigerians who are suspicious. What Nigerians are saying is that there are aspects of that law, in terms of processes, in terms of institutional responsibility, in terms also of, representation, that will have to be addressed. So, delay, they say in law, defeats equity. The equitable remedies that Nigerians are looking for in terms of the electoral process, this National Assembly is delaying it. So when at the end of the day they don't achieve the objective and time runs out, even now that some people are saying even the election should be, the process should be fast-tracked and move towards November, you will not be able to achieve it in terms of what the law says about time and other processes. But we will see. And if that is what this National Assembly does, we will say that the guilt was foretold. So there's responsibility and accountability issues on the part of the National Assembly. Now the second issue, the president met with World Bank delegates yesterday, and the World Bank was saying, oh, Nigeria is a reference point for determined reform, economic reform, and for credibility, for steadiness. What do you expect the World Bank to say? The World Bank pushed Nigeria in a particular direction. They wanted oil subsidy removed. They wanted harmonization of the dual foreign exchange rate. The Tinubu government from day one did it. And if you go and check all the comments by World Bank on Nigeria, World Bank has been very consistent. So all this propaganda about, oh, World Bank is commending Nigeria. There has never been a time that World Bank has criticized Nigeria since President Tinubu got there. The only thing they say is that there should be social welfare, programs to take care of the people's welfare. That's the only caveat. People should know that all these IMF, World Bank, they're also diplomatic institutions. They play politics, the nature of which I cannot categorically talk about. So they've been supportive of the Tinubu administration, and the president was very confident in telling them that leadership is about taking the hard decisions, that there was pain initially, people complained, but that leadership must continue to remain steadfast. The president also said the same right things. Standard and Poor is praising Nigeria, all the rating agencies, because it will look that the government of the day is listening to all these multinationals and all these international agencies. But of course, don't discount the diplomacy of these international institutions. And then here comes the coordinating minister of the economy, Mr. Wale, who says, oh, we are getting close to 7% GDP growth. That again is suspicious. But it is aspirational. He said 2027, 2028. But how do you get to 7% GDP growth and you celebrate it? I know that one of the rating agencies, IMF, says we are likely to make 4%. They are not as ambitious as 7%. But for you to even have 7% GDP growth, even when our own educated local economists, don't let me call them local, our own informed economists here, are saying you need double-digit growth. How are you going to get that double-digit growth if primary agriculture is not being funded? If you embrace devaluation, and under the regime of devaluation, interest rate has gone up, and when you say you are doing monetary easing, monetary policy, the only thing you talk about is rebasing. But the real issue is about productivity. We just came back from Turkey, and we keep saying there's production within the Turkish economy. Even if inflation in Turkey is double digit, but at least there's activity. What activity is happening here? Even manufacturers in Nigeria are now complaining about a sachet economy. They are complaining that they are comfortable with that sachet economy. Nothing is happening there. People cannot borrow from the banks. So these are the issues that should be addressed. Agriculture is very important. Primary agriculture can drive productivity, create jobs, provide, wages for the kind of crisis that we face. So it's not enough to just do propaganda and quote figures and all of that. No, that's not good enough. But however, the job of government is to give people hope. But you can say that hope that you are giving the people should be based on two phrases that President Tinubu himself used yesterday: transparency and accountability. But all this talk, however, about Nigeria is going to make 3 million barrels of crude oil per day. No, that's a lie now. Government should be sincere enough to say, okay, well, this is a projection projection because they have Shell saying we are reinvesting. They have the Bonga oil investment. So that is not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's not going to happen in 3 years, except that certain fundamentals are addressed. But as I said, the job of government is to give people hope, and that is what government is doing. We are not even meeting our current quota, OPEC quota. So how are we going to get to 3 million barrels?
5 years.
Which 5 years? Last year they promised us 2 million barrels by the end of the year. The year before,
spokesman came out to lie that we've hit 2 million barrels.
The other time, the Minister of State for Petroleum also promised 2 million barrels. No, we don't need all these projections. But we're saying, basically, that the emphasis should not just be on oil and gas. All the multinationals, all the major institutions will say, oh, Nigeria is doing oil and gas. Let them stay there. We should go beyond oil and gas. The other day, NNPC, yes, I think, launched the Nigeria Gas Master Plan,
yes,
based on the decade of gas.
Yes, yes.